growing on Instagram is hard, or at least that's what everybody says. But what if I told you the only thing standing between you and a six-figure follower account is not talent, luck, or even a fancy camera? It's understanding the right steps. Because when you think of creating content, you become overwhelmed, and that's exactly what's stopping you. You don't know what to create, you don't know how to record, when to post, you're scared of putting yourself out there. And I totally get you, because I was in the same situation. But after growing to over 1 million followers between Instagram and TikTok, I understood that creating content and growing on Instagram is not that difficult. That's why in this video, I'll break down how you can turn Instagram from something overwhelming into a simple process that requires low effort and brings big results. Because if you don't take action, you might stay stuck in that full-time job with no freedom, no travel, and your dreams on hold. And I don't want that. Your financial independence could be one Instagram post away. Now, think of Instagram growth like building a house. At first, it seems overwhelming, a huge project with so many moving parts. But just like any big project, you don't work on the whole thing at once. First, you break it down into smaller, manageable tasks. Planning the project, creating a 3D preview, laying the foundation, framing the walls, installing the windows, picking furnitures, and many other smaller tasks. Now, we are lucky because building a house is infinitely more difficult than posting on Instagram. But in the same way, growing on Instagram requires tackling one single small task at a time. And as you do this over and over, you develop a system. Each new build becomes easier because you've refined your method, learned from past mistakes, and made small improvements. Soon, instead of starting from scratch every time, you have a blueprint for success. This is our goal. First, we need to break down all the processes that will allow us to create great content on Instagram. Second, we need to come up with systems that can shorten the time and effort spent in every single part. So the question is, what are the main processes involved in creating great content? Well, this is quite simple. First, pre-production, which means idea generation. Second, production, which means practically recording the content. Third, post-production, which means editing the content. Fourth, the posting phase, which includes strategies to maximize engagement. And fifth, I'd like to add it as a bonus phase, which is managing emotions and mindset, which is probably the most important one. So let's start with the first one, pre-production. This is where a lot of creators get stuck. They don't know what to create and they think they have nothing interesting to share. But I can tell you right now, staring at a blank page with no ideas on what to post next is a killer. It's stressful and incredibly overwhelming. Imagine like you are a chef about to cook a meal for a huge event, but when you walk into the kitchen, the pantry is completely empty. No ingredients, no recipes, just empty shelves. You wouldn't even know where to begin, right? You'd probably just turn around and leave. Well, at the end of the day, content creation is the same. If you don't have a pantry of ideas ready to go, every time you sit down to create, it feels impossible to get started. You need to have that pantry stocked. So when it's time to cook up some new content, you can pull out exactly what you need without wasting time. That's why having a bank of ideas is so important. Instead of starting from scratch every time, you have a collection of ideas you can quickly pull from. This way, when it's production time, you just look at your bank of ideas, gather the best ones, and start creating. But then you might ask, okay, so how do I create this bank of ideas then? Well, there are a ton of ways on how you can come up and find the right ideas. Personally, I love to actively scroll on social media to see what's popping. I save a lot of content that I think I can apply to my own niche. I do some targeted research using the search bar on TikTok and Instagram. I analyze competitors using tools like TalkBackup or Metricool. I watch YouTube and get inspired by Pinterest. I use my stories to ask my audience for ideas, and of course, I ask ChatGPT. Now, learning how to create an efficient idea generation process is key if you want to make Instagram easy. Everybody has its own method, but I love the ROSE formula, which stands for Research, Offload, Organize, Script, and Execute. I made a detailed masterclass that is completely free, and you'll find the link in the description. Now that you have your idea bank, let's talk about the next crucial step, production. If you're not careful, the production phase can literally paralyze you. Now you've got your ideas and it's time to bring them to life. But the question is, okay, how do you bring them to life without feeling overwhelmed with all the things that can actually go wrong? I've seen creators struggle with finding the perfect location, being camera shy, or even thinking they don't have the right equipment to start. And believe me, if you don't push past these roadblocks, you'll never move forward. Imagine you're about to bake a cake and you've got the recipe right in front of you. But instead of diving in and getting your hands dirty, you're standing in the kitchen worrying about whether your mixer is good enough or if the oven will bake it perfectly. And meanwhile, you haven't even cracked an egg yet. Just like baking, content creation isn't about having the perfect kitchen tools. It's about getting started and adjusting as you go. The truth is, nobody cares if your cake, or in this case, your content, is baked with the fanciest equipment. They just want it to taste good. Or in content terms, your audience wants to find value in your posts. So how do you tackle production? Simple. Look at your bank of ideas and start batching your content. Pick ideas that can be recorded in sequence and try to knock out anywhere from 3 to 15 pieces content in one sitting if you can. This way, you're not constantly starting from scratch. Also, one of the best things you can do is to set up a ready-to-record studio. This means having a dedicated space where everything is set up in advance. Your camera, lights, and background are all in place. You just need to press record on the camera or on your phone. This eliminates the friction of having to figure out a new angle or setup every time, and it makes recording faster and more efficient. The less friction in the production process, the more likely you are to stay consistent. And consistency is everything when it comes down to Instagram growth. Plus, once you start recording regularly, you'll get more comfortable on camera. Remember, nobody really cares if you're shy or if the lighting isn't perfect. Authenticity is what matters most. People want to connect with the real you. I've seen creators take off just by leaning into their authenticity. In fact, there is a rising trend where creators leave their bad takes in the video itself, and they don't really care because they don't want to show that they're perfect, and people love it. Once you've got your content recorder, the next step is to polish it up, and you're gonna do this with post-production. This phase is what can make or break your content. It's where things can really slow you down, especially if you feel like editing takes forever or if you have no idea where to start. If you don't find a way to streamline this part of the process, you'll waste hours tweaking and adjusting, and that's time you could be spending on creating more content or engaging with your audience. Editing is super important, and I highly suggest you don't overthink it. The content is already made, but if you keep worrying about every little detail, it loses its freshness. So how do you make post-production easier? First, create your own style. Choose your go-to colors, fonts, and editing style and stick to them. In editing apps like CapCut or Final Cut Pro, you can save these as presets so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you edit. If you have the budget, find an editor. It might take time and patience to find someone who fits your style, but it will save you countless hours in the long run. I asked around my network, and after testing a few people, I found an editor who clicked with my vision. It took me over 2 years, but now I barely have to worry about editing. If hiring an editor isn't an option, learn to edit faster. You'll be surprised how much you can learn from watching even basic tutorials on YouTube. Often you'll find that what you're doing in 5 steps can be done in just 2 clicks. The faster you can edit, the more likely you'll be to get your content out on time. One trick I found incredibly helpful is auto captions in CapCut. Sometimes after trimming the main footage, adding captions is all I need to finish the video. It's fast, efficient, and adds an extra layer of engagement without too much effort. The more you can simplify your post-production process, the more you'll enjoy creating content, and the more content you'll actually produce. Cool, now that you've edited your content, it's time to talk about the posting phase. And trust me, this is where a lot of creators mess up. If you don't nail this part, all the effort you put into creating and editing your content will go to waste. The key here is to create a system that works for you. First, set up a posting schedule to remind yourself to post regularly. Use tools like Later or Buffer to automate this if needed. Have a few go-to caption templates ready so that you're not staring at a blank space whenever you need to write your caption. Captions don't need to be masterpieces every time. Just make sure they align with your message. Usually, I like to ask an easy question like 1, 2, or 3, or add a call to action saying something like, save this video and try yourself, or share with a friend. Research your hashtags in advance and keep a list of ones that work well with your niche. Stop worrying so much about posting at the perfect time. Yes, Timing matters, but it's far more important to post consistently. And to do so, just think this. When is your target audience awake and most likely to be scrolling? For example, I like 5 p.m. UK time so I can catch Europe just finishing work, lunch on the East Coast, and morning before work in the West Coast. Then don't forget to cross-post on other platforms like TikTok or Pinterest. Then one more thing which is super important. Engagement doesn't end with posting. Make sure to respond to comments, engage with your audience's story, and interact with others in your niche, especially right after you post it. This signals to the algorithm that you are active and build stronger relationships with your audience. Once you've set up a system, which means scheduling posts, using templates, and sticking to a regular engagement routine, you will start seeing real results. But if you really want to succeed on Instagram, you need to make the process more enjoyable. This is the bonus phase and is what separates those who quit from those who succeed. It's all about mindset and it's by far the most important of them all. And trust me, this is where most creators fail. It's not the algorithm or lack of creativity. It's mental roadblocks that slow them down, make them second guess everything, stop their progress, or even quit. There are 4 key mindset shifts that will keep you going no matter what. First, understanding the algorithm. You need to understand that the algorithm is not your enemy. It's just a system that rewards consistency and engagement. Once you understand that, you can stop obsessing over every little change and focus on creating content that resonates with your audience. Second, consistency over perfection. You don't need to post perfect content every time. In fact, perfection can paralyze you. The most important thing is to keep showing up. Consistent effort beats a perfect post any day. Third, niche targeting and personal branding. Stay true to your niche and your brand. It's really tempting to follow every trend, but that can dilute your message. Stay focused on your core topics and your audience will appreciate the clarity. Fourth, persistence is key. Growth on Instagram takes time. You'll have ups and downs and it's easy to get discouraged, but success comes from those who keep going. Remember, the only way to fail is to stop. If you get your mindset right, everything else will fall into place. But if you want to grow faster and save more time, watch this video where I share 44 learnings I picked up on my journey to 440,000 followers. See you here.